Welcome to the Business Trendsetter Podcast, where we talk about trends and how to use them to grow your business. My name is Manny Turan.
And I'm Adam Hartung.
We are Spark Partners. We're here every week to discuss all things trends, all things business. And, one of the things that we talk a lot about, of course, is that of AI and what it really is, what it means, how to use it. There's a lot of fear around it. We've talked to some people, and I know you've had some conversations with some business leaders that are basically saying over my dead body. We have others that are really spreading their wings and taking flight. And I know you've experimented with it a little bit. So have I. We use it in our business. We use it with our vendors and everybody else that we interface with. And there's this question, this idea about where's it going? If you remember the people that had that created ChatGPT, OpenAI, the founder used to carry a backpack around. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
Kind of like the nuclear football, if you will. It was the AI football that he could remotely derail or bring down the servers through this backpack. So he could be somewhere. He can be in Dubai at a conference, and AI starts to go crazy. He can pull out this thing and shut it down. Well, I guess they stopped doing that now, by the way, but it was an interesting concept, at least.
I guess if you want to put fear, uncertainty, and doubt in people's heads, that's one way to go about doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So there's this thing about, that you and I run a business, and I run another business, and you have things going on, and we have lots of people that are in business. And, we think about what does it take to run a business, and what are the levers we can pull? What are the pulleys we can pull? What are the actions that we can take interacting like you and I do here on this podcast or with our constituents? Or what do we command AI to do? I wouldn't even say what do we allow AI to do, because we still have to give it inputs. So let's talk about this concept and this topic, Adam, and let's kind of flesh out maybe the ins and outs of what a business owner, an executive can do using AI, and what things they can't do, and see where it goes from there.
Oh, sure. So I think there's a lot of people that don't really understand what most of it is mostly happening in the world of artificial intelligence today, because we use the term AI in so many different ways. The big money and what we're talking about are these large language models. It's what they call LLMs. And what an LLM does is it uses a set of mathematical algorithms to look at very large data sets and put order on the data set. Okay. So if you have a good set of data, like about, let's say your factory, and you let it work on the data, then the AI can come back and say, well, then this is the way we should adjust valves, and this is the way we should adjust the speed and things like that. And it's very, very good at looking at that data. Now, what's it bad about? If you have data in there that's not very good, like maybe their data accumulation product rounds up and rounds down to a certain amount, or let's say that the data you had a data about your factory and there was a second factory, and you put the two data sets together. Well, you might say they were similar factories, but they weren't identical. Well, now what happens is the AI, it doesn't know the difference. And so it will take a look at all of it and tell you what the answer is, even though you've got two sets of data that you've commingled and you really only want to apply it to one factory. So that's another example where you could really go wrong with what you're doing with the data. The thing is that it's totally historically based and backward oriented. So that means that if you want to try to apply AI to something that's highly repetitive, right? Something that gets done again and again and again and again and again, and see if it can't figure out how to do it quicker, better, more accurately, all right? Now, what are humans really good at? We're good at adapting. So let's take, for example, if I was really struggling to try to figure out, if I'm a diagnostician, a medical doctor, I'm trying to figure out why somebody is sick, okay? And I'm hung up. What I could do is there's AI models that have been built that have looked at all the medical and lots and lots of medical information. That medical information is given to medical students, and that AI passes the exam to become a doctor. Okay, the boards, I think they're called. So the AI passes the boards. So now, if I was struggling to try to do a diagnostic, I could go to that AI and I could start to feed it all the data about the patient that I had. I mean, all the data. And the humans aren't very good at looking at 300 data points, right? But you could put 300 data points in, and it could sort through 300 data points and come back with some recommendations about what might be wrong with the patient. So it's good at that, and it might do, probably do it faster than a person could look at all that data, and probably more accurate. Let me tell you where it would fail. Take the same sort of a situation, you got a medical doctor, and he's in, let's say, an emergency room, and somebody says, check on the patient in room 3 has a cough. Now the doctor can walk in and immediately say, "Oh, this is an 80-year-old woman," and all of a sudden he will pick a data set in his head that applies to that person, maybe based on their age, their weight, their height, skin color, country of origin, lots of factors that would come into play from multiple data sets he could look at and say, what's the most likely cause of this cough? And quickly try to take a look and get rid of all the most obvious things to see if there's something worse going on. That's not good for AI because you'd have to input all that
Right.
information that he can pull very quickly. The
I actually
second,
have a really good example of that.
yeah, oh, yeah, go
So
ahead.
a buddy of mine, his dad retired a number of years ago in good health. He was, I think, at the time in his early 70s, and he was avid golfer. He's a runner. He swam a lot. Went to the doctor he had to sprain his ankle. The doctor was, looking at his ankle. It was fine, and he was standing up to walk out of the room, and he had this cough. Kind of funny you mentioned that story. And the doctor said, "Are you feeling okay?" He goes, "Oh, I've just had this cough every once in a while." And just something about the cough and something about the history of this patient that he knew for a while that made him pause. So he made a couple, hey, would you mind sitting down? Would you mind doing this and doing that? So long story short, he very quickly ascertained that my friend's dad had a significant blockage in his arteries, his coronary arteries, just from that cough.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, obviously there was more beyond that, but he actually went and took him to, did some really quick stress test. From that point on, he went out to do a more substantial blood test. And he said, we need to get you to the operating room now. And it turns out he had 99% blockage on 3 of his coronary arteries and almost 100 and 99.9 on the last one. He would have died like
yeah,
the next day or the day after. So he caught it. They took care of it. They did the angioplasty and the removal of the plaque and all that. And he was fine and he's still doing well. But if it wouldn't for that cough, it would be a different story.
well, and again, he selected a data set. He knew the patient, so he had some background on the patient and a number of things. And he probably knew, like, from where he lived, sources of coughs and what, a person that has a cough, for example, because they were caught up in a dusty situation, sounds different. These coughs sound different. You can pick that up with your ears. AI would have to have a data set around what does the cough sound like, have gone through and, memorized a whole bunch of different coughs to figure out what it sounds like to try to match it up, right? Do it mathematically. Let me tell you something else that doctor could do. He could have met your friend's dad, said, let's go do this test. And then he could say, let's get that started. And he turned into the next room. And there would have been one of his patients that was, let's say, a 16-year-old child, or, boy or girl here. He would immediately now take on a different set. If he heard that person cough, he'd probably go, okay, there's been a big cold running around, or a lot of kids in your high school have the flu right now, or, so immediately it goes to a different place, right? That
Right.
is an adaptability of the human mind. You can very quickly adjust those things. And so when we're looking at AI, it's like there's easy problems and there's hard problems. And for AI, the easy problem is where it's a known data set, it can study that data set, and the data set is very accurate, right? The more you move away from that, or you need other data sets, the more problematic it becomes. That's why they talk about, for example, if you're using Chat GPT, don't let it just write a paper or write up something for you and hand it to somebody because it can have errors in it. Why? Well, because Chat GPT looked at all this information on the internet. And we all know from commercials and jokes all over the world that you can't rely on everything that's on the internet, right?
Don't believe everything you hear on the internet is what
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln said.
Yeah. And so you get these weird things that happen with AI because of the data set it started with. And this is one of the things that what I'm trying to help people understand is that AI isn't just Chat GPT. So, for example, if you want to use AI in your business, yes, you could use Chat GPT for brainstorming and a lot of things that we do. But if you really want to use it in your business, you should get a large language model. Like, so Meta has one, for example, and you can download for free. And then you put your own data against it. Now, a lot of people listening to this say, I'm not an IT guy, I'm not a computer scientist, I don't know what out programming. And I'd say that's fair. But the reality is you can learn pretty quickly. There are people giving classes all the time. There was a woman that I did a lot of board work with a decade ago. She's older than me, and she just went to a 2-day session on applied AI at MIT and walked away with a lot of really good information ground up about how to make it work. So now she did it. She would be knowledgeable for her board of directors that she's on. But at all levels, there are classes that you can go get on implementing large language models. So you can learn that, right?
Yep.
I hate it when business people are like, well, I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to do it. Well, why? Are you too old to learn something?
Yeah.
And the second thing is obviously you can find a lot of people out there. Colleges are teaching these algorithms now, they're teaching how to use AI tools. So you can hire people that can do this. You can hire consultants that do it. You can hire independent consultants and gig workers that can do it. The key there, I'm going to come back to it again, though, is do you have a good data set, right? And one of the things that a lot of small business people haven't done is collect the data on their business, right? They don't really have the data. And that's why I think they don't go after AI. So the first step, if you think about trying to, do something in your business to make it more productive, is go see, do you have good data? And can you collect better data? Now,
Yeah.
you have a CRM system. CRM systems don't know themselves. I don't have much value for, but one thing they can do is collect a lot of data about your customers. And so then you can feed data from a CRM module into your large language model, and it can come back and tell you something about your customer profiles. It can tell you
Right.
things about what, if you've got customers buying product A, what's a good product B. It can do all kinds of things with your CRM data that can help you to be more effective.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes, if you think about that old adage of garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're
Yeah.
providing your large language model trash, garbage, or like you said, things that aren't necessarily true on the online, you're going to get something out. And I think a lot of business owners are afraid of using AI because, first of all, they don't understand it. Second of all, because they haven't tried it. I think we've been experimenting with it sort of on small projects here and there. I know that you downloaded Dolly and we're playing with that. And I was playing with it the other day and I asked it to generate a picture. I just picked something random. I said, how about a picture of a beaver and a wombat playing cards at a bar? Right? The most random thing. And within 30 seconds, I had two images of that exact thing. And it was kind of funny that it, came from nowhere, but I had to give it that the prompt, obviously. So I think there's a lot of mystery, but I think that as we start to go into this new generation, this next, as it starts to unfold, business owners absolutely need to engage and try it out for themselves, and also start to understand how they're maybe come up with policies for their employees. If their employees are just using it ad hoc and there's no guidance, then they might be generating reports for their customers that are incorrect. There
Yeah.
might be other issues that need to be dealt with unless there's a policy put in place. And I'm not one for policies, by the way. I don't like them a lot, but I think there's occasions where you have to have some guardrails.
Another thing that I think our customers or our listeners should be attuned to is using vendors that are skilled in AI. So, for example, let's say you want to do some marketing and you've got a plan the way you've done marketing all along. You wonder, if this is effective in today's world. Should I be buying ads? Should I be doing what I've been doing? Well, there's a lot of small ad agencies out there, big ones, all big ones, but some of the small ones, where you can go in and say, look, this is my typical customer. And they can give you a model for that, right? They can say, this is how these customers behave. And then they'll say, this is how you could tune your marketing plan or your advertising plan. It's kind of like back in the days when Google ads first came out. And if you wanted to, you test run keywords, right, to figure out how to run your Google ad. Well, now there's companies that can test run what would happen using AI models if you wanted to do more advertising on Google, on
Right.
Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on where it's not expensive to do advertising. So again, there are applications for this that we as business people should be doing in all of our businesses today. It's like the internet; it's everywhere. We should be doing it, but don't hesitate to ask your vendors what they're doing with AI and if they can bring something to the party to help you be more effective.
Yeah, so the company that I run, we've been around for 56 years, and there's a lot of innovations that we've been part of, and this is certainly one that we're riding the wave on as well. But it goes back down to what does it really produce at the end of the day? And I'm more of a crawl, walk, run guy. Let's try it out. Let's see how it runs. Let's create some very light guardrails, and let's create some a process to test how it's going. And then as it starts to unfold, then we can start to unfurl more of the power of the tool. Now, you mentioned AI as a large language model. There's also other components. Of course, I mentioned the drawing and video output devices or tools. There's some financial models that we've discussed with a potential partner here that we might further discuss on a podcast. There's even a small mini course that we're debating putting together for other business owners and executives that'll allow them to very quickly start to use the tool and develop some I wouldn't even call it skills, but more familiarity with the AI tools.
Right. So, let's back up a minute. Think about where could we apply this sort of thing? Well, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics every year publishes the jobs that they think are most likely to go away in the areas where there will be more new jobs coming along. Right. And so, let me just tell you what they did looking from 2022 to 2032, where the predictions came in. The number one job that would go away was cashiers. Now, that makes sense because of what cashiers do. It's a very manual, repetitive job. Typically doesn't involve a lot of changing data sets, right? You know what it is, you don't know what it is. So as you could get smarter, think about it if you were in a grocery. What we're going to get with groceries is instead of just reading barcodes, pretty soon I'll be able to tell a head of lettuce from a head of cabbage and help you with that part when you're doing your self-checkout in a grocery store. So now, for all people out there, start saying, what is your cashier response? What is your collections response? How do you do that? Can that be handled better with artificial intelligence? I know that in my case, I've had situations where my credit card number got stolen. I had to change my credit card. I don't remember all of the businesses that have my credit card that do auto payments. And so as time goes by, those people have come to me. Well, some of them, I don't hear from them for 2 months and they shut off a service. I'm like, why did you shut off my service? I said, well, your card that didn't run for 2 months. Duh, you didn't bother to call me say email me or something to get in contact. So these are simple things, like if you see cashiers are going away, then we know people are working right now on applying that problem. Let me go through a couple more. Secretaries and administrative assistants, right? That's going to go away. Office clerks, customer service representatives, miscellaneous assemblers and fabricators, bookkeepers and auditing clerks, executive secretaries, almost the same job, fast food cooks, and first line supervisors of retail. All right. So think about the tasks those people do, and you can see there's a lot of repetitive nature. And if you're a bookkeeper, you're entering data, right? You're data entry. If you can figure out some way to use a machine to read that, then you don't need the person there anymore, right?
Right.
So if you have some job, it's accumulating data. So just think about things like, for example, some surveyors. There's lots and lots of data related to surveyors. Today, surveyors have to come out and find posts in the ground and do all kinds of things. There are better ways to go about doing that if you have a large language model that can tell you how to, where the survey should start by knowing when other surveys were done in the area. So it starts with that data to bring you up to speed.
Right.
Well, anytime you've got a repetitive task, think about that as a good place to apply AI to get started. And then think about the fact that if you don't quite know where to go, reach around and say, well, who could provide me an answer? Who's got an alternative solution for collecting, payments, for doing administrative tasks, all that kind of thing? One of the things that's going to be super easy, and I'm looking forward to getting it started with myself, is helping me with the travel arrangements. Because anytime you got to go somewhere, most of my meetings are one-day events anymore, and I just need to get the ticket, get the hotel, get the rental car, right? Today, that still takes me easy 3 hours, right? To look it up, go online, look it up, make the purchases, get things set up. And it's perfect for AI because I know what I'm going to look at. I go through the same process every single time. So the AI could run that down for me in 5 minutes and give me 3 choices of each of the things I want. And then I would be able to pick them and go forward with them. So again, anything that you're repeating, anything that admin does for you, those are the kinds of things you could start looking for
Yeah.
because the people already looking at that saying those jobs are really not going to be necessary going
Yeah, and
forward.
I think there's also another distinction that we should call out right now, and I think there's kind of three camps. There's AI, true AI, artificial intelligence, and then there's technology and just automation in general, and then there's the merger of the two. So maybe something like a machine that grills a hamburger patty and then spits it out for the right on top of the bun, and then there's another machine that flips it over and all that. I think that part is technology, but when you couple it with the fact that you walk up to a kiosk and you say, "I'd like a double cheeseburger with no ketchup and extra pickles," that it does all the back end stuff. So I think that things are moving in that direction. I don't know if you have Circle K's out where you are.
I'm definitely from our circle.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you've been in there recently, but they have these crazy machines, these self checkout machines that have use optical, must be like need 3 or 4 different cameras and some sensors. So you take whatever you're buying and you plop it on the table, and it can be in any orientation. It could be a Snickers bar, some peanuts, and a thirst buster or whatever they're called now, a Polar Pop. And you put them right on the table, and within 5 seconds, it totals them all up. And I've sort of quietly experimented with them, and I've kind of put them so that you really can't tell what they are. But every single time, it's picked up what it is. I mean, things like the barcode's facing down, so it has to actually read what's happening, and every single time, it's read with 100% accuracy. It's remarkable.
Yep. So let's talk about the jobs that the Bureau of Labor Statistics thinks are going to be around. Well, the number one is healthcare, right? And why? Well, what did we just talk about? Multiple data sets. Even if you're working in say a nursing home, every member of that nursing home is unique, has a unique health background. And so one person has diabetes, another person maybe has Alzheimer's, and you have to have different diets, different drug regimens, et cetera. So it's going to be tough for AI to replace that, right? And so you start thinking about, well, you want to lead people in their careers. A lot of healthcare jobs require this adaptability, like we started the show with talking about the doctor going between patients. Another one's restaurant cooks, because while you can automate a fast food restaurant, if you think about a restaurant cook, there's a menu, it's got multiple items, and then everything's cooked to order. So, you might have to cook 5 different dishes simultaneously on the same cooking equipment, right? And then he might have to the next day have an even different menu than he had the day before. So restaurant cooks are very viable as opposed to what we just talked about with the fast food cook, right? Who's not
Right.
very viable going forward. Order fillers. I found this one fascinating, so I did some research on it, and I found out that what they're talking about here are like the people that stock a store at night. And it's interesting. I looked into it. The stockers in a grocery store at night don't operate at all like customers. They have the store aisles in their mind, and they go to the back. They pull these racks of the boxes of material they want to put out, and then they go down the end and they just sling these boxes down the aisle. And so they get all the material down on the right aisle, and then they start putting it on. And if you think about it, it's way faster to do that sorting category first. So they did an AI test, I found out. And what happened was they took an AI algorithm and they took people and they said, your job, they gave them a game, a computer game. And they said, there's 4 active agents, 4 active members, 4 people, for lack of a better word, in the game. And there's a whole bunch of boxes. And they would say, have your person go to box A12, for example. And you start the game, and then whoever gets there first. Well, what a person would do is say, first of all, which one of those 4 is me? Let me figure that out. Once I know which one I'm controlling, then I move it to A12. Well, the AI couldn't do that. The AI, instead of doing that, would try to figure out what's the most likely outcome and would go after moving all the people. So now it's moving them much, much faster than the human, but it never won the game. Humans always came out faster because first they sorted it, then they went and solved the problem. And that's what's happening with the stockers. I'm like, okay, if you walk up to the job, can you apply some intelligence to the job? And that would be the ability to know this box goes to aisle 12, this box goes to aisle 16, right? And then you can quicken the pace up and go with it.
Right.
So those are jobs that you start saying, okay, that's a good place for you to go. The human brain and doing things where you have to adapt. And the faster you have to adapt, the greater the requirement for adapting. That's why policemen will never be replaced by AI, for example, because you can't sort out the good guys from the bad guys, with a computer. It's going to be tough to do. And it's why autonomous driving, for example, so truck drivers is one that there's all this debate about. My reality is that if you're a truck driver over the long road, we're not going to need many of those because we're going to get to autonomous trucks. But if you're a truck driver and gets handed 6 deliveries to make, your ability to know towns, to know the traffic patterns of the town, to know the tollways and all that good stuff means you'll probably figure out what order to deliver the 6
Hmm.
packages in. And you're driving in an urban environment where you got to know the difference between a dog and a human and a fire plug, right? And all the different things like that. Scan that quickly, make decisions. And we see that autonomous vehicles just don't do that well, right? We have all kinds of problems with autonomous vehicles trying to drive in urban environments. So you can say, well, if you really like being a truck driver, you probably ought to be doing deliveries for some independent organization that's in an urban environment, urban
Right.
suburban environment, right? Like
I have a great
Phoenix.
story about that too. So I was at a Jordan Peterson talk. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a Canadian guy, and he's sort of a polarizing dude, but I happen to like him. And I was at kind of a concert hall, so there was about 3,000 people in there. And as it ended, I took an Uber there, and then I was waiting to get an Uber back to my hotel. And Uber, sure enough, said, "Here is an option for taking an autonomous vehicle. It's a Waymo vehicle, one of these nice Jaguars that." SUV things. And I said, you know what? It's only a couple miles away. Why not? Let's just get this experience. So jumped in the back, no driver. There's a prompt that says, don't touch the controls. We're safe, all that. Of course, I put my seatbelt on and I watched it navigate through the crowd of people crossing the street. And I got to admit, I did kind of bite my tongue a little bit thinking, good Lord, something's going to happen. But no, it was able to navigate when there was because people's always, if the light turns green, people rush across, but there's always a couple stragglers that don't maybe make it till the very end. So I was thinking there's going to be an issue. No issue at all. It read the whole thing. It went actually a lot faster than I thought, and it went down a couple major streets. Long story short, it took me to my hotel, and it was quite the experience. So for me to have done that, and think about 5-10 years ago, that was just impossible to even fathom. And here we are in a metro city like Phoenix. I took this, autonomous vehicle, and it's not going to stop. It's going to get more and more advanced.
Yeah. Well, again, what I want to come back to is this notion that if a job is very, very repetitive, it's going to be replaced by a robot. It could be a physical robot like we see in factories today where they do a job, or it could be a computer robot that knows that it's going to make the same decision over and over and over again, right? If it's a series of yes, no questions, like literally think about the number of things you do in your life where you ask somebody yes or no, yes or no, yes or no to work your way down to an answer, like basic diagnostic testing, for example, then that's perfect for machine learning. And that's not going to be a human job very long. And if you're in a position where you've got continuous motion, look for robots. If you've got yes, no programs that you run, then you should be applying machine learning, because machine learning will never make a mistake, right? It can go over and over again. But if it's a job that requires adaptability, that's where you want to be as a person, and that's not where you want to put your AI dollars. We spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I said that Elon Musk giving up on superchargers in order to do artificial intelligence with autonomous driving is foolish, because the supercharger business is going to be a great business. Will he ever get the autonomous driving car? I don't know. That's pretty darn tough, right? And so think about it, your business that way. How can I robotize the job? How can I use machine learning? And let me apply artificial intelligence when I got good data that tells me what the conclusions would be like, so that I don't have to be second guessing what's going on.
Very well said, Adam. And I think it has to be tried and tested and made into reality. You can't dream your way through this process. You've got to actually lean in.
Yes.
Thanks for your time, Adam. We'll be in touch, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.